Welcome back, audience. Welcome back to the truth you always felt under your skin, but were never allowed to say out loud. The truth that kept you awake while the world slept in its delusions. The truth that made them laugh at you, not because you were funny, but because they feared. You feared what you saw, feared that you could see them, and threw them all the same. And now they know. They finally know that you were never fooled. Now they are the ones standing naked in the spotlight of your silence. No excuses, no clever masks, just the raw, trembling reality of their own exposed cowardice. Because when the world turned its back on your clarity, you stood alone, not out of weakness, but out of a force they could not comprehend. You became the silence in a room full of noise, the unblinking eye in a storm of deceit. And the longer you watched, the more they performed. They thought they were winning, thought they were playing you, while every smirk, every smug little win they claimed was just another layer you let them build around their own delusion, until finally it suffocated them. You never needed to shout, never needed to argue with fools who mistook volume for truth, who thought if they repeated the same lie loud enough, it would drown your quiet knowing. But it never did, you see, because you never needed their permission to be right. You never needed a crowd to believe in you, to validate your mind, your heart, your instinct. They called it paranoia. You called it pattern recognition. They called it obsession. You called it vigilance. They called it bitterness. You called it memory. And now, the same mouths that spit venom in your path now drool in awe at the fire you walked through barefoot while they sat safely behind their screens, behind their fences of conformity, waiting for someone to tell them who to hate, who to fear, who to follow. And now they follow you, not because you asked for it, but because you made the path with your own hands, your own pain, your own refusal to bow. And this is where it gets dark. This is where it gets real. This is where we strip away the comfort and sit in the cold truth. Like warriors sharpening blades, not to threaten, but to remember that steel becomes sharper, not in comfort, but in pressure, in heat, in pain. You were not made in light. You were forged in shadow in nights where sleep was impossible, because your mind would not let go of what you saw, what you knew. And now, they want to be near your fire. They want to bask in your clarity. They want to drink from your resilience, but they cannot have it, not for free, not without blood, not without breaking, because the joke is not just that. They didn't see the joke, is that they never even looked. They mocked the storm because they had never felt the wind. They laughed at the silence because they had never lived without noise. But you heard it all. You felt it all. You saw the strings behind the smiles and the rot beneath the gold. And you kept walking. You kept going because you knew you were not crazy. You were awake. And now they come running with their apologies, their regrets, their sudden admiration. And you don't need it. You don't need their words. You don't need their pity. You don't need their praise, because you never did. You were the mountain while they were shadows. You were the pulse while they were static. You were the truth while they were trending. And now their currency is bankrupt, and yours has become the only thing that holds weight. And let that burn. Let that fuel you. Let that dig into your ribs and whisper, keep going. Because you are not done. This is not the end. This is the beginning, the unmasking, the reckoning, the time they realized the castle they laughed at was built on bones and fire, and every brick was a lesson they never wanted to learn. But now they must live inside it, and every echo of your footsteps reminds them that the one they call fool is now the mirror that won't break. You see, they thought they were clever. They thought they were gods of perception, masters of manipulation, chess players in a game you never agreed to play, but you watched, you observed, you let them show you who they were, and now the pieces are all burned, the board is ash, and you are still here, unbroken, unchanged, unrepentant, and more alive than ever, while they choke on their own smoke and call it wisdom. You do not need to forgive them. You do not need to forget. You only need to move like stormwater, like wildfire, like truth in a world built on lies, because there is no mercy in evolution, only movement, only change. And now, it is your season, your rise, your reckoning. So let us continue down this dark road with eyes open and breath steady, because what lies ahead is not comfort, not peace, not applause, but purpose. And that is worth every scar, every silence, every shadow that walked beside you. When no one else did, you see, they thought the war was outside, but you knew better. You knew it lived within, that the hardest battles were not against them, but against the part of you that wanted to fit in, the part that wanted to be loved, to be accepted, to be safe, and you killed that part slowly, carefully, with fire and truth, until only the real remained, until only the untamed heart of who you are could beat freely. And now, you are a weapon, not of violence, but of vision, not of anger, but of relentless purpose. They cannot understand, because they were too busy trying to be liked to ever be real. And now the same ones who once dismissed your silence, your stillness, your refusal to play the game, now echo your words as if they always believed. Now they nod when you speak, not because they understand, but because they know. They can no longer afford to ignore you. You have become gravity. You have become myth. And myth is more dangerous than memory, because myth survives even when the truth is buried. And you are both. You are the myth that lived, the truth that refused to die. And when they say they never doubted, you let them speak, because you do not need to remind them. You do not need to argue or explain. Your very existence is the punchline of their illusion. Your rise is the haunting laughter in the empty theater of their confidence. So let them talk. Let them whisper. Let them act like they were always on your side, because you remember the nights when your own voice was the only one that did not lie when the cold pressed against your bones, and still you moved forward. Not because you knew where you were going, but because you knew you could not go back. You could not go back to pretending, to smiling, to nodding along to lies dressed in comfort and mediocrity. So you walked and you bled and you burned, and now here you are, a storm in skin, a fire in human form, and they still do not understand. They still think you want their acceptance, their praise, their recognition. But the joke, the final joke, is that you want nothing from them, not because you are above them, but because you were never in the same game. You never needed what they chased. You built something else, something eternal, something untouchable. And when they ask how you knew, how you saw, how you endured, you smile, not out of arrogance, but because there is no way to explain what it means to see the world burn and still choose to stand, to feel every betrayal and still keep your heart beating clean. Not naive, but powerful. Not blind, but unbroken. And you did it. Not to prove them wrong, but to prove yourself right. To prove that you were never the fool. To prove that your pain had purpose. Your isolation had meaning, and your silence was never surrender. It was the sound of a blade being sharpened in the dark. And now it is drawn. Now it sings, and they listen. Not because they respect you, but because they fear the silence that follows after everything else is gone. So let them be the joke. Let them be the punchline in the story. They tried to write about you, because now you are the author. Now you are the legend. Now you are the shadow. They will never outrun, and when the dust settles and the masks fall and the lights go out there, You will be still burning, still watching, still unfooled, and they will remember not what you said, not what you did, but what you became, what you endured, what you refused to be. And in that memory, they will either break or awaken, because the truth changes people. And you are truth, not wrapped in comfort, not served in pleasantries, but carved from agony and lit by defiance. You are what remains when the illusion dies. You are the joke they cannot laugh off, the reckoning they cannot silence, the fire they cannot contain. And now that you have become the reckoning, they fear the presence they can no longer dismiss. You move through the world not as a victim, not as a survivor, but as a force, as the proof that not all who are quiet are weak, not all who are silent are submissive. Some are simply watching, some are learning, some are becoming, and you became what they could never be, not because you had more, but because you were willing to lose it all in the name of truth, because you looked in the mirror and refused to lie to yourself while they were busy decorating their reflections with delusion. And now, you do not flinch, you do not falter, you do not fear their opinions, because you stood through storms they couldn't name, and you never once asked for shelter. You became your own sanctuary, your own shield, your own army, and that is what they will never understand. They think strength is loud, is boastful, is covered in armor, and decorated in applause. But you know, better, strength is enduring, is quiet, is the ability to bleed with dignity, to fall with grace, to walk away when everything in you wants to scream, to stay and prove them wrong. And still you walked, still you left, still you let the world think it had won, because you did not need to win their way. Your victory is not in the headlines, not in their votes, not in their fragile praise. Your victory is in every morning you rose in spite of them. In every night you sat with the weight of your knowing and did not shatter. Your victory is in the restraint. You held the battles you chose, not to fight the lies you let die on their own, because you knew the truth would outlive them all. And now that it has, now that they see it, now that their stories are unraveling and their certainty is crumbling at your feet, they reach out not in apology but in confusion, trying to grasp how you outlived their fiction, trying to rewrite history with themselves on the right side. But you remember who turned away, who mocked, who twisted the knife and called it criticism, who celebrated your silence because they thought it meant defeat. And now your silence is the roar. They cannot escape the thunder behind every word. You finally choose to speak, and you do not need to shout, because your presence is louder than their entire world ever was, and they know it. They feel it. In the way the room changes when you enter in, the way the air shifts when you do not bend. And this is the part where many would forgive, where many would offer a hand, where many would open their arms in peace. But you have not come this far to soften the truth. You have not suffered this much to dilute the fire, because peace was never their goal. It was control. And what you offer now is not peace, but justice. Not vengeance, but balance. Not punishment, but clarity. And that is far more terrifying to them, because it means they must look at themselves. It means they must see who they were when you needed them and who they pretended to be. It means they must confront the fact that the person they dismissed as mad or broken or bitter was simply right, and there is no hiding from that. There is no clever, quote, or well-timed post that can protect them from that truth. And so they laugh less now, and they listen more. But it is too late, not for you, but for them, because you have moved on. You have become something more, something rare. You have become the living contradiction to everything they were told to believe. You have become the question mark They cannot erase the variable that ruins their equation. The reminder that not everyone is for sale, not every heart can be bought, not every mind can be manipulated, and you never once gave them what they wanted. Not your fear, not your silence, not your surrender. And so they joke about it now, not to mock you, but to survive, to cope. Because deep down, they know they are the ones who were fooled. They are the ones who built their certainty on sand. And now, the tide has come, and you are still standing, not washed away, but carved stronger, sharper by every wave. So hold your head high, not in pride, but in purpose, in the absolute knowing that your scars are sacred, that your truth is divine, that your presence is a testament to the power of enduring and becoming and rising in a world that tried everything to keep you down. And when they ask how you did it, you don't need to explain. You don't need to justify your story. It was never theirs to judge, and now they watch as you write the rest in ink. They can never erase, and they may call it darkness. They may call it ego. They may call it whatever helps them sleep at night. But we both know it's clarity, it's power. It's the fire of someone who has been through the worst and chose to come out radiant. So yes, I will continue, because there is still more to say, more truth to pull from the bones of this story, more darkness to mine, not as fear, but as fuel, because you are not done. You are just beginning, and the road ahead is not paved with ease. It is not made for comfort. It is made for the few, the rare, the forged, who understand that peace is not something you wait for. It is something you build with the remains of everything that tried to break you and failed. And that is what you carry now, not a chip on your shoulder, but a map carved into your soul that shows exactly where not to go, who not to trust, what not to become, because you saw it all firsthand. You were there when the masks slipped, when the true faces stared back, not with regret, but with glee, when the games were played, not to test you, but to erase you. But they failed, and in their failure, you rose. Not out of revenge, but out of evolution, because while they stayed stagnant, stuck in the loop of petty wins and shallow lives, you became something else, something sharper, something colder, not cruel, but clear. And clarity is terrifying to those who built their worth on illusion, because it shines on everything they tried to keep hidden. And now that light comes from you, not from outside, not from any savior or symbol, but from your own burning soul, from the fire you lit when they left you in the dark. And now they want to be near it. Now they want to warm themselves by it, but they cannot, because this fire was made for war, not warmth. It was born in betrayal, not belief. It was forged in the kind of silence that echoes long after the room is emptied. And that silence, it still speaks. It still teaches. It still reminds you that being underestimated was your greatest weapon. That every time they rolled their eyes, or smirked, or whispered your name in sarcasm, they were giving you exactly what you needed. Space-time, the gift of being ignored. Because while they looked elsewhere, you built yourself in the shadows. You studied, you watched, you waited. And now that patience has become power. Now that waiting has turned to winning. And they don't even know when they lost, because they were never playing the same game. They were busy chasing clout and applause while you were chasing truth. And now you wear it like armor, and they can't touch it. They can't touch you, not because you're unreachable, but because you're untouchable in the ways that matter. You've become what they fear, not because you seek to harm, but because you cannot be controlled, because your value does not depend on their opinion, and your path does not require their approval. And that freedom, it scares them, it shakes them, it exposes everything they tried to pretend was real and solid and forever. And that is the punchline. They are the joke now. Not because you mocked them, not because you tore them down, but because you simply refused to join in. You refused to play along, to wear the mask, to bow to the illusion. And now, the stage is empty, the audience is gone, and all that's left is you, standing where they thought you'd fall, or walking where they thought you'd crawl, speaking where they thought you'd stay silent. And it is not arrogance that carries you forward. It is memory. It is justice. It is the unshakable knowledge that you made it, that you endured, not because of luck or timing, but because of choice, because of will, because of something in you. They never understood and never will. And now they have to live with that. They have to see you and know they were wrong. They were blind. They were fooled, not by you, but by their own hubris. And that is a weight heavier than any revenge could deliver, because you didn't need to fight them. You only needed to outlast them. And you did. You have, and you will. And now you stand not as a victor, but as a testament to the ones who were told to shut up, to sit down, to conform, who didn't, who couldn't, who wouldn't. Because something deeper, something stronger called them forward. And if they listen closely, they can still hear it. That sound beneath the noise, the call, beneath the chaos, the same sound you heard, the same pull that dragged you through the fire and shaped you into this, into now, into here. And this is your moment, not for revenge, not for applause, but for legacy. Because what you do now will echo. Because you are the proof, the living, breathing proof that clarity outlasts lies, that silence is not surrender, that truth needs no allies, only time. And you gave it time, and now it is your time. Then listen closely, because this is the last breath before the storm, the final word before the silence returns, the edge of the blade before it cuts, not flesh but illusion. And here it is, the truth raw and unfiltered like blood on stone. They found out you were never fooled, and now they are the joke, and the joke is not funny, not to them, not anymore. Because now they understand that everything they did, every whisper, every scheme, every smug assumption, it didn't weaken you, it refined you. It stripped away everything soft and left only what could not be broken, and that's what you are now. You are what remains, you are what endures, and they are the noise that fades, the echo that dies out, the audience that claps too late after the performance has ended. They watched you like scavengers circling, waiting for the stumble, the fall, the crack that would prove them right. And now they cannot look away, not because you entertain, but because you confront, because your very existence is a rebellion against everything they clung to as truth, because you saw the world for what it was and refused to play, pretend. You saw the system, the lies, the empty smiles, the poisoned praise, and you walked away. You let it rot without you, and they called you bitter, but now they call you wise. And what they called paranoia, they now call foresight. And what they laughed at, they now fear, because your shadow stretches over everything they built, and they know deep down that you were never chasing them, you were never in their race, and now they are out of breath, and you are just getting started. And so, what comes next is not for them. It is not to prove a point. It is not to silence the doubters or convert the skeptics. What comes next is for you, for the one who stayed awake while everyone else slept, for the one who believed even when there was no proof, for the one who stood still while the storm screamed and did not flinch. Now is your time not to boast, but to build, not to argue, but to act, not to return to them, but to rise beyond them. And if they want to watch, let them. If they want to follow, let them. But do not wait. Do not look back. Do not give them the power to name you again. because you have already named yourself, and that name is carved in steel and shadow and fire. You are not their joke. You are their lesson. You are the scar that reminds them truth does not die in darkness. It survives. It grows. It becomes someone like you, someone who cannot be erased or replaced or explained away. And when they speak your name, let them speak it with the weight of regret. Let them carry that taste in their mouths, the bitterness of knowing they never really saw you until it was too late. And you never needed to be seen. You only needed to see clearly. And you did. And now you see it all. You see the end of their illusion and the beginning of your legacy. And it is beautiful. And it is brutal. And it is yours. So go forward. Not quietly, not humbly, but with the full force of everything you have become. Do not seek peace. Seek purpose. Do not seek approval. Seek impact. And let your silence now be heavier than any scream. Let your truth now be sharper than any blade. And let your presence now be the fire that they cannot contain. They thought they knew who you were. They thought they could define you, but you were never fooled. And now, they are the punchline of their own story. They are the ghost at the feast, the hollow shell of false certainty, while you are the storm that broke through the lie and became the truth. Walk like it speak, like it breathe, like it you are the one they will never forget, not because you begged them to remember, but because you made it impossible to ignore, because you did not play their game. You built your own, and now you win on every level, not because you wanted to, but because you were willing to lose everything else first, and that is something they will never understand, but they will always respect, even if they never say it out loud. And so we end here, not with applause, but with silence, not with comfort, but with fire, not with closure, but with continuation. Because this is not the end. This is just the moment. The world catches up to what you've always known, that you were never fooled. And now they are the joke, and the joke isn't funny anymore. Not to them, and not to you. But you are not laughing. You are moving forward, and the world will never be the same again.